They lied to you. They manipulated you. And now Roman Reigns is back to prove that everything you thought you knew about the Bloodline was completely wrong. For months, we watched Solo Sikoa destroy everything Roman built. We watched as the so-called tribal chief was nowhere to be found while his legacy burned to ashes. And just when you thought the Bloodline story was dead and buried, Roman Reigns walks back through that curtain with the Usos by his side, and suddenly everything changes. But here's what's making my blood boil right now: WWE had this planned all along, and they played every single one of us like a fiddle. Hit that like button right now if you're as fired up as I am, and smash that subscribe button because what I'm about to expose will change how you see this entire storyline forever. You need to watch every single second of this video because the devil is in the details, and trust me, WWE has been hiding the truth in plain sight. Let me take you back to where this all started going wrong. WrestleMania 40. The night Roman Reigns finally lost. The night his 1,316-day reign of terror came crashing down at the hands of Cody Rhodes. We all celebrated. We thought it was over. The tribal chief had fallen, and wrestling could finally move forward without Roman's iron grip on the main event scene. But here's where it gets interesting. The moment Roman disappeared from our screens, something sinister started brewing. Solo Sikoa, the so-called enforcer, started making moves. He started calling himself the tribal chief. He brought in Tama Tonga. He brought in Tonga Loa. He even had the audacity to bring in Jacob Fatu, arguably one of the most devastating performers in the world today. And where was Roman? Nowhere. Silent. Gone. And you know what WWE wanted us to think? They wanted us to believe Roman was done. They wanted us to think he was taking time off to heal, to reflect, to come back as something different. But that was the biggest lie they ever told us, and I'm about to prove it to you right now. Think about this carefully. The Usos, Jimmy and G, where were they during all of this? G was off doing his own thing on Raw, getting massive reactions, selling merchandise like crazy, becoming one of the most over superstars on the entire roster. Jimmy was dealing with his own demons, working through storylines that seemed to have nothing to do with the Bloodline. It looked like the family had completely fractured. It looked like everyone had moved on. But they didn't move on, did they? Because the moment Roman Reigns' music hit, the moment that opening riff echoed through the arena, Jimmy and G were right there. Not reluctantly. Not after weeks of deliberation. Immediately. They were right by his side like no time had passed at all. And if you think that was spontaneous, if you think that wasn't meticulously planned, then you haven't been paying attention to how WWE operates. Here's what really happened, and this is going to make you furious. WWE knew Solo's Bloodline wasn't working. They knew that despite Jacob Fatu being an absolute monster in the ring, despite Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa having legendary names, something was missing. The ratings showed it. The crowd reaction showed it. You can't replace Roman Reigns' presence, his aura, his ability to make you feel something whether you love him or hate him. So what did they do? They let Solo play tribal chief for months. They let him bring in his guys. They let him run roughshod over SmackDown. And all the while, they were building to this moment. They were building to Roman's return. They were building to Bloodline 3.0. And they used all of us, every single fan who thought this was organic storytelling, as pawns in their game. Now let's talk about what Bloodline 3.0 actually means, because this is where things get absolutely insane. Roman Reigns isn't coming back as the same tribal chief we saw before. He can't be. He lost at WrestleMania. He lost his titles. He lost his grip on the WWE Universe. But what he hasn't lost is his family. What he hasn't lost is Jimmy and G's loyalty. And that is the foundation of Bloodline 3.0. This isn't about championships anymore. This isn't about Roman standing at the top of the mountain alone while everyone else bows down. This is about family reclaiming what was stolen from them. This is about the real Bloodline taking back control from the pretenders. And whether you love Roman or hate him, you have to admit this is compelling television. But let's address the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. What about Paul Heyman? Where does the wise man fit into all of this? Because if you've been paying attention, Paul Heyman aligned himself with Solo Sikoa after Roman disappeared. He stood by Solo's side. He acknowledged Solo as his tribal chief. He seemingly betrayed everything Roman Reigns built. Or did he? Think about it. Paul Heyman is the ultimate strategist. He's the advocate, the special counsel, the wise man. Do you really think Paul Heyman would abandon Roman Reigns unless it was part of a larger plan? Do you really think a man who stood beside Brock Lesnar through multiple runs, who managed CM Punk during his legendary title reign, who has been the voice of the dangerous and the extreme for decades, would just switch allegiances without a reason? Here's my theory, and I want you to comment below if you agree or if you think I'm absolutely crazy. Paul Heyman was planted next to Solo. He was there to observe, to report back, to play the long game. Because Roman Reigns doesn't do anything without a plan, and Paul Heyman is always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. The betrayal wasn't real. It was strategy. It was warfare. And now that Roman is back with the Usos, Paul Heyman's role in all of this is about to become crystal clear. Let me break down exactly what makes Bloodline 3.0 so different from what came before, and why this might actually be the best version of the faction we've ever seen. Bloodline 1.0 was Roman as the untouchable tribal chief with G and Jimmy as his enforcers and Paul Heyman as his mouthpiece. It was dominant. It was oppressive. It was Roman's world and everyone else just lived in it. Bloodline 2.0, Solo's version, was chaos. It was about bringing in outside forces, new blood, trying to recreate something that couldn't be recreated. It had moments of brilliance, especially with Jacob Fatu's impact, but it never felt legitimate. It never felt like it had the heart that the original Bloodline had. But Bloodline 3.0? This is different. This is Roman returning not as the dictator but as the leader. This is Jimmy and G not as reluctant soldiers but as brothers united against a common enemy. This is family over everything. This is blood versus blood. And in professional wrestling, there is nothing more powerful than a blood feud. The chemistry between Roman and the Usos is undeniable. These men have been telling this story for years. The tension, the betrayals, the reconciliations, it's all been building to this moment. And now, with Solo Sikoa positioning himself as the rival tribal chief, with his own version of the Bloodline standing opposite, we have the perfect storm for what could be the most personal, most brutal, most emotionally devastating storyline WWE has produced in years. Think about the matches this sets up. Roman and the Usos versus Solo, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu. War Games becomes the most obvious destination, and can you imagine that match? Can you imagine the carnage, the storytelling, the raw emotion that would pour out in that steel structure? That's not just a match. That's a war for the soul of the family. And here's what's really getting under my skin about all of this. WWE knows exactly what they're doing. They know this is money. They know this is what brings people back to the product. They know that Roman Reigns, love him or hate him, is the biggest star they have. And they're going to milk this storyline for everything it's worth, and we're going to eat it up because despite all the manipulation, despite all the calculated booking decisions, it's exactly what we want to see. But we need to talk about the criticism too, because I know some of you are sitting there thinking not this again, not another Bloodline story, not more Roman Reigns dominating television. And you know what? That's valid. That's a completely fair reaction to have. We spent years with Roman at the top. We spent years with Bloodline drama dominating every major show. Some people are tired of it, and I get that. But here's the counter-argument. Name me another story in modern WWE that has this level of depth, this level of history, this level of investment from the audience. You can't, because it doesn't exist. Love it or hate it, the Bloodline saga has been the most consistently compelling storyline WWE has told in the past decade. And if Bloodline 3.0 is truly the final chapter, if this is building toward a definitive ending, then shouldn't we see it through? Let's also address what this means for the rest of the roster. Because one of the biggest complaints about Roman's previous reign was that it sucked the oxygen out of the room. Everyone else felt secondary. Every storyline felt less important than whatever Roman was doing. And that's a legitimate concern moving forward. But here's the thing, WWE has to balance this differently now. Roman doesn't have the championship. He's not the central figure around which everything revolves. He's one piece of a larger puzzle, and if WWE is smart, they'll use this Bloodline civil war as a backdrop while still giving other stars their moments to shine. Cody Rhodes is still the champion. Other feuds still need to matter. The key is integration, not domination. And speaking of Cody Rhodes, we have to consider how he fits into all of this. Cody is the man who ended Roman's reign. He's the man who finally finished his story. But with Roman back and focused on his family drama, does Cody fade into the background? Or does this eventually circle back to him? Because if I'm WWE, I'm already planning for Roman vs. Cody 2 at next year's WrestleMania, and this time it's not about championships. It's about legacy. It's about proving who is truly the face of WWE. Now let's get real for a second about what this means for wrestling as a whole, because the implications go beyond just WWE programming. Roman Reigns coming back and immediately reforming the Bloodline sends a message to every other promotion out there. It says that WWE isn't afraid to run with what works. It says they understand the value of long-term storytelling. It says they're willing to give fans what they want while still finding ways to keep things fresh and unpredictable. Compare that to how other companies handle their top stars and their major storylines. How many times have we seen promotions give up on stories too early, or drag them out too long without any real direction? WWE, for all their faults, has managed to keep the Bloodline story relevant and engaging for over 3 years now. That's not luck. That's intentional, careful booking with a clear understanding of character dynamics and audience investment. But I want to bring this back to you, the fans, because ultimately this story only works if we care. And clearly, we do. The reactions when Roman's music hit were deafening. Social media exploded. Wrestling news sites crashed from the traffic. Whether you're Team Roman or Team Solo or Team anyone else, you had an opinion, and you wanted to talk about it. That is the power of effective storytelling. So here's what I think happens next, and I want you to tell me in the comments if you agree. Roman and the Usos are going to systematically dismantle Solo's bloodline. Not quickly, not easily, but methodically. They're going to prove that blood is thicker than water, that family loyalty cannot be manufactured or bought, and that there is only one true tribal chief. Along the way, we're going to get incredible matches, shocking betrayals, and moments that we'll be talking about for years to come. Paul Heyman is going to reveal where his true loyalties lie, and my money is on him returning to Roman's side, but not without some serious drama first. Jacob Fatu is going to prove why he's one of the most dangerous men in professional wrestling, and his battles with Roman and the Usos are going to be absolute wars. And somewhere down the line, probably at WrestleMania, this is all going to culminate in a match that determines once and for all who leads this family into the future. The reason this makes me so angry, the reason I needed to make this video, is because WWE has successfully manipulated all of us into caring even more than we did before. They took a story we thought was ending and found a way to make it essential again. They took characters we thought were moving in different directions and brought them back together in a way that feels both inevitable and surprising. That's master-level storytelling, and as much as I want to be cynical about it, I can't help but respect the craft. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. Seriously. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on Bloodline 3.0. Do you think this is the right move? Are you excited or exhausted? Who do you think will come out on top in this family war? And most importantly, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is just getting started, and you're going to want to follow along for every twist and turn. The tribal chief is back. The Usos are united. The Bloodline is reborn. And whether you love it or hate it, you cannot look away. This is wrestling at its most dramatic, most personal, and most compelling. This is what we signed up for. This is why we watch. Welcome to Bloodline 3.0. Acknowledge it.